Alright, today we have a 2006 Honda Element that we are sitting in, and what we're going to be doing is a little different than what we normally do. We're going to show you how to install a new CD player. You can see the factory one is still installed here. It's just a plain old CD player, so we're going to install a new one that has all the fancy Bluetooth and everything. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing we have to do is pop off this trim panel around the shifter mechanism down here. To do that, what we do is just kind of start it off. It can be kind of tight. Oh, there it goes. You just kind of pry around, and it's got little clips inside here that will come free as you go. Once you get it up a little bit, you can kind of grab onto it and just work it around and get these clips out of there. There it goes. And here's the hazard switch. We're going to go ahead and just disconnect the electrical connector on there and set that panel aside. So now what we need to do is take off this whole outer trim piece. And just like the other panel, it's held in by snaps, basically. What you want to do is just grab onto it. I'm going to start with one corner here and just give it a tug, and it will come free. That snapping noise is actually just the clips breaking free. You're not breaking anything. Once you get one corner free, go to the next one, do the same thing, and just kind of work your way up, and eventually it will just pop off. And at this point, I'm going to have to get the shifter shifted down to a lower gear. So I'll put the parking brake on. And what I'm going to do, since I don't have the key in my hand, what you can do is pop off the emergency shifter release and just stick a screwdriver or something down in there, and it will free up your shifter. So now we're going to pull this back, and we need to disconnect our connector for the AC controller. Okay, so to get this connector off, there is a push tab. You just pull it and it pops off. So at this point, we'll set our trim panel out of the way. Okay, so now we have the panel off. You can see the radio here. There are 4 screws that hold the radio in place. So I'm just going to go around and take out all 4 of these Phillips screws. Okay, so with these 4 screws out, at this point your radio should just come free, and on the back here you'll see you've got the one connector for the stereo and the power and speakers and everything, and that one is the same thing. It's got a little see if you can see that, there we go, little push pin here, there we go. And then this one is your radio wire. You just pop that out just like so, and at that point, that's all there is to taking out your old radio. So next, what we're going to do is set up our new radio and the wiring kit that's required to put this in, and we'll meet you over at the table and show you how to connect all that together. Okay, so here's our new stereo that we're going to be installing. It's the Pioneer DEH X6600BS. So we're going to go ahead and open it up. You can see here right on the top of the box you have your wire harness, a microphone, some hardware, and your remote control. And then inside here we have the instruction manual and your warranty card. And then here's the unit itself. All ready to be installed. You can see on the back here, it's got the 3 sets of RCA outputs. So if you ever want to upgrade the system and put a bunch of amplifiers, you sure can. You have that option. It's also got the microphone input for the Bluetooth for the cell phone, I guess is what that's for. Your antenna input, and of course your main wire input. This is an auxiliary jack for if you ever want to add a CD player or CD changer, which isn't really relevant anymore, but they still put it on there. So anyway, that's our new stereo. And one other thing you will need, and they make these specific for the cars, is the wire harness adapter. You can see here this one says Honda and Acura. You can look it up online and find the right one for your specific vehicle. What this does, I'll show you. You will see that this plug looks just like the one that was on the original CD player. So what you can do is then wire up your two harnesses together. This will plug directly into your new CD player or stereo, and then the factory wire harness will plug into this end. So you don't have to cut any wires on the car itself. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and show you how to wire that up. All right, so what we're gonna do first is compare our wires to see, because the new stereo might not use all the wires that were offered from the factory. You can see here, you've got the gray solid and the gray with the black stripe, white solid and white with a black stripe, the two purples and the two greens. What those are for the speakers. The colors are always going to be coordinated. Well, generally they're going to be color coordinated. So luckily all we have to do is match up the colors. Now you'll see here we've also got a system remote control, which what that does, that turns on other accessories whenever you turn the radio on. And we've got the 12-volt battery positive. This is basically the memory. This goes to an always hot wire. It's what allows the radio to store your radio stations. And then this one is the 12-volt on. So when you turn the key on, this one gets power, and that's what turns your radio on when you turn your key on. And this, of course, is the ground, the black one. So looking at our harness that we have all the same colors. We have the whites, the grays, the blue, purples, and the greens. We also have the blue, the red, and the yellow, and the black. Now this harness has two other wires that this particular radio does not use. Some of them might. It's the illumination and the dimmer wires. What those do, those adjust the brightness of the radio, if the radio has that option, when you're turning the dash brightness up and down. But this one does not use that, so what we're going to do is just cut those wires shorter, because we're not even going to use them. Leave a little lead on there just in case in the future you ever change the stereo and you need those wires. So at this point we'll just go through one at a time, and I'm just going to start off by twisting them together. You will see that the speaker wires are not stripped. So this is a really handy tool. If you don't have one, I recommend everybody has one of these things. It's called a wire stripper. They come in various ways, but you'll see how easy it makes it to strip the insulation off these wires. All you do is line it up like so and go like that, and that's all there is to it. So I'm going to strip all these wires. Okay, and then on our harness side, these are already pre-stripped. All you do is just pull off the ends of them, which is kind of nice when they come like that. All right, so next what we're going to do is solder the wires together and put heat shrink over them. A lot of people will just use twist ties or what's called butt connectors. Personally, I always solder. You can't beat the connection of using solder because it's permanent. You know, the connection is not going to wear down and get corroded, and you'll lose speaker quality or anything. So, so I'm going to get set up real quick, and then I'll show you how to solder these. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do before I start soldering is I'm going to slide a piece of heat shrink tubing over each of these wires, just so that I don't forget to do it later. So I'll go through and slide one on each wire. So I got a piece of heat shrink on each of these wires that we'll be using. So next up, what I'm going to do is just go through and twist the wires together, one at a time. This ground one gives us a little extra length that we don't need. And again, all you do is just match up the colors, starting off with our 3 power wires. And then I'll go through and do the speakers. Actually, I'll go ahead and solder our 3 power wires and then do the speaker wires separately. So what you do, my solder tip is a little beat up, but it still works. To do this, all you do is you heat up the wire and add a little bit of solder, and you'll see the wire just suck up the solder. And once you do that, it's a permanent bonding. Okay, so we got our power wires connected. Next, we're going to go ahead and twist together our speaker wires. Again, what you want to do is just match up colors to colors. So we have a solid white goes to solid white. White with a black stripe goes to white with a black stripe. And I'm just going to keep doing this all the way through the rest of these wires here. So now I'm just going to go ahead and go through and solder each one of these one by one. And then after that, we just have to put the heat shrink on. So we'll just do the same procedure just like we did on the power wires. Just put a little dab on each one. Okay, so now we have a soldered connection on all of our wires. And next we're going to go ahead and slide our heat shrink up and over the solder connections. Maybe a little too much solder on this thing. What you do is you just fold the soldered end over the thinner wire. And then just slide the heat shrink over it. This one has a little sharp nub I'm going to cut off just because you risk that poking through the heat shrink. So I'll just do that. Okay, so now all we have to do is shrink down our heat shrink tubing. The easiest way to do it is if you have just a regular lighter. What you do is you don't want to hold it on there too long, but you'll see when I run it back and forth, you'll watch the heat shrink down against the wire. So this is how you do it. See, and it squishes down around it, and that'll hold it tight. Okay, so now before we actually install the radio, this particular one includes a Bluetooth, not a Bluetooth, but a microphone to be used with the Bluetooth for the stereo. The owner of the vehicle wants it mounted up here on top of the rear view mirror. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of drape it over there now. And what I'm going to do is go around and just tuck the wire up around these various panels and make it hidden. And I'm going to feed it all the way over towards the radio. So we'll start with it like that right there. And then I'm just going to work around and get this wire hidden. Okay, so now we have our microphone wire running all the way from here, all the way down to where the radio will sit. The reason we sped that up and I didn't go into detail is because people are going to want to put the microphone in various places, and each time you run that wire is going to change a little bit. So just kind of find the best way of routing it all the way to the CD player. All right, so our next step is we're going to open up our dash installation kit and see what's involved on putting that in. All right, well, it turns out that our aftermarket installation kit is not needed on this particular vehicle. So I'm kind of perplexed as to why it even exists, but we're not going to be using that after all. What we do need to do is just remove the factory stereo from these brackets, and we'll just reuse those and the original cup thing here. So right here we have 2 Phillips screws, and those are not coming out easy. Now our new Pioneer should line up directly with that. But first what we have to do is remove this outer, it's kind of a universal holder. If you use these when you don't use the brackets. What you can do is bend the tabs back, but that's a whole nother video. So what I'm going to do is just pry back this locking bar on each side and pull back on this cage a little bit. And then once that's free, this shield just comes off like that. So we're not going to be using this on this installation. If you are, some vehicles do require this, but we don't need this. So we'll just set that aside. Now, at this point, the stereo should line up and correspond with a couple of the holes that are already on the CD player. So we'll just kind of wiggle it around a little bit until it kind of falls into place. Yes, and it's upside down, so you don't want to do that. Thanks, Josh. My camera guy just pointed out that I had it upside down. So now let's try that again. Okay, so we're just going to line up these holes the best that they'll go. And the new radio did include new screws here. Line that up with the hole there. And go ahead and tighten them down. Okay, so now our stereo is mounted in there nice and tightly. Hopefully that'll clear. I think it will. Now we should be able to just bolt this all right in and plug everything in, and it should be good to go. So we're gonna go ahead and move back inside the car. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is test fit our new setup here. Just make sure everything lines up, and it looks like that's gonna work. So next, we will go ahead and plug in our harness that we soldered together. You know what, there's one thing I want to do real quick, and I'm not going to show this on video. I'm just going to put a little piece of empty heat shrink over the two of these, just to keep, you can see there's a little bit of metal right on the end. You don't want these to short out against anything, so I'll be right back. I forgot to do that earlier. So now we'll go ahead and plug our connector in. This will only go one way. Hopefully it goes at least one way. Wouldn't that be terrible? There she goes. Need a little wiggle in just to get all the pins to line up. Once you get that, it'll snap together. So next, so we've got our 1, 2, 3 plugs. All 3 of these are going to the back of the radio. The back of the radio has one specifically for the microphone, which is this little one here. So we'll plug that guy in. And then next we will plug in this one, which is our main connector, followed by the antenna, which goes into this end hole. You won't really be able to see it, but I'll just plug that in. So now we feed all these wires, just kind of poke them up in the dash, just out of the way. And there we go. Next we install our bolts that hold this bracket in. Again, these are the factory bolts, since we're using the factory bracketry. Okay, now before we go any further, it's a good idea to test it before you get all the panels back on. So let me just turn the key on and we will test it. All right, seems to be working. So at this point we don't really have to test it. We'll see if we get a radio station. All right, so it seems to be working. So at this point we can go ahead and put the rest of it back together. I'm going to go ahead and shift back down. All right, so what we're going to do now is first kind of test fit it. Yeah, it looks like it's going to work fine. Now we have to install or plug back in our AC connector, which all you do is just snap it back in. And then this whole panel kind of lines up. And then snaps into place. And all that's left now is to put this one trim panel on. We'll slide it over the shifter and snap in our hazard light switch. And that thing just snaps right back on too. And that's it. Test it one more time. There we go. So that is how you install a new stereo. In this case in particular, and a Honda Element. You can use these instructions for many cars though. The only thing that'll probably be different is the trim pieces around the radio and how the radio is actually bolted in. But other than that, it's a general how to install a CD player. So, but thank you for watching. Remember, this video was brought to you by Auto Parts Direct to You. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/APDTY. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. We're always putting out new videos. And check us out on Google, the Google Plus page. Thank you.